Nurse.org and Major League Sports teams are honoring nurses with discounted game tickets and once-in-a-lifetime experiences. From throwing the first pitch to riding the Zamboni to on-court recognition, join the fun. Visit nurse.org/nurse night to find a nurse appreciation event near you and grab your discounted tickets today. You're listening to Nurse Converse, presented by Nurse.org, a collaborative podcast amplifying diverse nurse voices. Get ready for a dose of inspiration, a sprinkle of education, and a whole lot of community.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Nurse Converse in partnership with Emory University. My name is Jeri Ford. I'm your host today, and I'm so excited to bring forward this information-packed episode in collaboration with the wonderful people of Emory University and all of their knowledge. So let's face it, nurses are the faces of the hospital systems. We are the jack of all trades. We know everything. We get everything done. We wear almost all of the hats, whether we're in the hospital setting or the outpatient setting. We are natural problem solvers at the front lines of care, but too few of us realize our potential as inventors, creatives, entrepreneurs, just the fact that we have so many ideas every single day. A little fun fact, did you know that less than 1% of healthcare patents are attributed to nurses, despite being the largest sector of the healthcare workforce? It's common for nurses to come up with transformative ideas such as the alcohol swab, the crash cart, the ostomy pouch, only to see their intellectual property co-opted by colleagues in other disciplines. But with today's episode, we're hoping we can put a little bit of a stop to that, or at least get the ideas flowing. We'll guide you through the steps to develop and pitch your idea, navigate the patent process, find funding, bring your innovation to life, and how to prosper far beyond that. So without further ado, I want to introduce my wonderful co-hosts with me who are a wealth of information. Monique, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, everyone. Hello, my name is Monique Bouvier. I am an assistant professor at Emory School of Nursing in the Center for Data Science. Additionally, I am the corporate director of nursing science at Emory Healthcare in the Center for Care Delivery and Innovation.
Amazing. And Miss Rasheeta.
Hi, everyone. I am Rasheeta Chandler. I'm an associate professor in the School of Nursing at Emory University, and I am also a family nurse practitioner. I have a couple of different hats, many of which have to do with research, also some teaching in there, mentorship with students. So we, again, as was stated before, we wear so many different hats, but I won't bore you with that, but just happy to be here and excited to talk about this topic.
I was getting ready to say that. I'm like, I just had that whole intro, and both of you were like, we do this, and this. I feel like it's just, it's just in our blood. So again, my name is Jeri Ford. Just a little bit about me too is I've been a pediatric nurse for 12, going on 13 years. I'm also a podcast co-host, and I was a travel nurse for a lot of those years. And then in the middle of travel nursing, I also decided to co-found and co-found a business with my travel nurse friend, a private baby nursing company. So this is right up my alley too. And I think that together, all of us would have a lot of things to say. And I've been saying since we started talking about this, that this is an episode that I wish I would have had when I first started doing any of this or even looking into it. So we will do our best for everybody. First things first, I just want to organize it like you have an idea and where's the beginning. And I feel like when we were talking about in our information sessions, that learning and the process of learning is like the very first step. So I guess, Rasheeta, how did you start that process, or what did that even look like? Where do you even begin, in your opinion?
So I would say that my beginning was really before I started to think about how I could do it in nursing. So I had some innovative ideas outside of my healthcare expertise. And so I started to dabble in engaging, doing a Google search like most of us do, right? And I wanted to see what was financially feasible. because it could range. You could get private coaching, business coaching. But I started with the Small Business Administration. They offer some free courses. It is a federally funded agency, and you usually can find one in your local jurisdiction. So that's really where I started to learn what the infrastructure of having a business of my own was. How should I go about registering? And they provide excellent direction in that. They also provide some free consulting with people who have also started their own businesses too. It may not be health related, but usually the basics are very similar. So that's really where I started, and kind of word of mouth, knowing people who have their own businesses. I would just kind of pick their brains, and even sometimes be mentored by those individuals. Again, it may not be in the healthcare sector, but sometimes just a business of business administration, marketing, those types of things can cross sectors. It doesn't have to necessarily be in the healthcare sector. That's really how I started to seek out information. And I will add one other thing, and I haven't probably maximized this, but at Emory and I'm sure at other institutions, one of our benefits is that we can take courses. And so, at the School of Business, I've thought about potentially doing that. And I do know colleagues who actually have enrolled to take advantage of courses in that way, where it's low cost or no cost to them. So that's another resource I want to throw out there for others. But I have considered that. I just haven't always quite had the time to do it.
Right. That's actually, I didn't even know about the small, you said the Small Business Administration?
Administration. It's for short as SBA, and you can find them anywhere. Also, let me just throw in the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
They have local Chamber of Commerces. They usually have opportunities to engage with business owners. That's kind of where the crux of a lot of local business is happening. They typically have events as well, and also seminars, etc. I will say there's a lot out there, right? You can get on Facebook book groups and all of that, but those are kind of made for people at low or no cost because they're already baked into the system to try to help small businesses, right? So you can go out there and pay lots of money, but I'm just trying to give some practical things because I don't always have the extra money to add a course on here. And then Coursera. I don't know if anyone heard of Coursera. Sometimes go ahead, Jeri. Have you heard?
No, it's like, I remember I've never done it, but I just didn't even, that's a great idea.
Yeah, Coursera. I have also taken courses through them. You can audit courses that you don't get the certificate, but I just needed the information. So Coursera is a great place to also audit, and you get very, people who are experts from very prestigious universities. They teach this. They're expert in it. So those are some practical. I could go on and on. And I want to hear from Monique and you, Jeri. I don't want it just to be the Rasheeta show. So I'll be quiet there. But I hope I gave some very practical ways for people to engage resources.
Yeah, no, those were amazing because it's like you don't even know where to start. And of course, you can start with Google. That's exactly where I probably started too. But you just get I remember feeling overwhelmed and like looking and just, being like, okay, whatever. And I would rather talk to somebody. But some people would rather do like their deep dive into research. Some people would rather just talk to somebody. So I think it's good to have those options. I know that another resource I wanted to throw out there too was SCORE. SCORE, it's you can just type it in. It's like a business mentorship, and they kind of just survey you and see like what you're looking for, and they partner you with someone in your area that is an expert in whatever you decide, whether it's starting a business or an idea or something like that. And we were paired with someone who was really wonderful as far as the beginning process goes. So that is another resource I want to throw out there too. Something else too, I know, Monique, we were talking about learning institutions, like rules and regulations, which before we talked, I seriously can't believe that's something I didn't even think about. And so until you guys both brought that to light, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's something to even think about too. So What exactly does that look like?
Yeah. So, depending on where you work and depending on what business that you're starting, you want to be mindful of the rules and regulations when it comes to intellectual property. I've had the pleasure of working for another institution where, as a nurse scientist, where they did not have anything in place to really protect a nurse's invention, for it to be their own, but also to get, shared, that profit back, like if it were to make money or something like that.
Mhm.
And so, um, what would happen is that if a nurse would say theoretically invented something at this institution, the kickbacks or the net revenue would then actually go back to the hospital system. That's the way that it was written. And so it became being the nurse scientist as well as an advocate for nurses everywhere. I was like, oh, no, no, no. And so I partnered with an institutional lawyer to change the policy to mimic the university that the hospital was associated with. And so we were able to get that change to it being, if a nurse in the hospital system were to invent something, they would get the same benefits that the professors or other people in that area would have or would get. And so that took a year and a half to 2 years to
Wow.
actually put into action. And so the purpose of this is that, in healthcare, our inventions or our ideas come from the clinical setting.
Mhm.
And so if you invent something, let's say, and somebody can bring you to court, or the hospital system or somebody else could bring you to court saying, well, you did this with the institutional knowledge that you got while working as a nurse in our facility, or you utilized some of our products to test it, etc., then they could say this intellectual property is actually ours.
Mhm.
So you really want to be mindful of that and then determine what that policy is and then take the steps to protect yourself. So most hospitals as well as institutions, they tend to have like an office of information technology transfers, something of that nature. You want to contact them and say, hey, I'm thinking of inventing this. I have this idea. Um, I am not going to be doing it during my work hours. I'm not going to be doing it with my healthcare or university email
Mhm.
address. It's not during my work hours, etc. And I will not be utilizing any supplies, time, resources from your organization, and I'm hiring my own lawyers to help
Mhm.
me with this this patent and things like that.
Mhm.
Just declare that up front and have their sign off on it. Because if you don't, and this product is making, a bunch of money, they could theoretically take you to court saying, you developed this, while you were working. Therefore, we deserve some of the intellectual property, net revenue or something like that.
Mhm.
Or you could take the approach of like, well, actually, wow, my health system or my university has these resources. I don't have to hire my own lawyer. Therefore, yes, I will partner with you guys, and then you look at what your university or health systems rules and regulations are about, like the shared net revenue, the intellectual property, who owns it, etc. And then if you agree with that, you can partner with them, and it may make your lives easier, but you just have to know and understand that some of that, if your invention, your innovation does gather some net revenue, you're going to have to share it with the university, with the health
Mhm.
system, with yourself, etc. I know that Rasheeta has gone through some of these processes as well. And so, Rasheeta, do you have anything else that you wanted to say to that?
I appreciate you, laying that out so vividly.
Mhm.
I have fumbled my way through it. So I would just say that you're absolutely right to know what the guidelines are up front, because you want to make sure that whatever happens, you're on board with it, right? It's not a surprise. And it's like, oh, I'm making this money. Oh, no, you owe your university 75% of it, or your hospital system 75% of it, right? Because most of the time, you're going to be doing most of the legwork. You're going to be pushing that product. You're going to be the one engaging with individuals about use of the product. So you're going to be putting a lot of time and effort in. So you ought to be very sure about how much you're going to benefit from it, and whether or not you want to go the route that Monique, which route you want to go, right? A or B. Do you want to have the help of your institution? Because obviously that means your upfront costs are lower, but you have to pay on the back end, or the option A, where you incur all of your costs. And don't be tempted to use that laptop or that cell phone, because it's tempting, right? Because that's the one we use all the time, right? So it's like, well, I might as well just, no, that's their property. So be very clear as to, separating that if you opt to do it on your own.
And it's
but
good
you did a great job, Monique. Explaining that.
You did, because as I'm listening, I'm like sweating a little bit. I'm like, did I? Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I was lucky, because while I was doing all this, my my co-founder and I were both travel nurses. So we weren't really tied to like anything specifically. So I think we could have had a fight there, which is great, but it's something I just didn't even occur to me, like in all my research. And, I mean, luckily, yeah, we didn't use anything that was anything hospital related, like supply, like everything was on our own time. But as you were like listing those things, I'm like, okay, check. Let me just make sure.
Well, I mean, they don't teach us that in nursing school, right? Like that's not, I'm going to be very blunt with this, and I apologize for it, but that's not on the NCLEX.
Right.
So that's not something that, that they're, taking time to really like drill into us. This is like, I will honestly say that I personally did not, well, my husband works for a company where if he were to invent something, it's just theirs, unless he does that whole declaration thing. And so like that's where like I kind of got exposed to this. I'm like, ooh, if I'm doing something, I need to like really make sure that I'm like dotting my I's and crossing my T's. But then going through the whole process of ensuring that our nurses at this other place that I worked, it got that benefit of, hey, I invented this. And yes, it was in conjunction with the health system, but at least they're getting something potentially back with that shared net revenue. To me, like that's when I really learned. Actually partnering with a lawyer and him explaining to me, if you're ever to do this, Monique, you got to do this, you got to do that, make sure you do this. I'm like, okay. It was experiential learning. And so Yes, it's something that I do feel that, our education system could, dedicate a class to or something, just so that we are aware, because we do work, our work is for potentially a health system or a university. And so like, if we don't know this, as Rasheeta alluded to, you don't want to be hit with a $75,000 or something like that payment, because of what you generated based off of your innovation. Okay, I'm done.
Absolutely. Taxes are already enough. You're already, everybody's already grabbing for it. So you want to be sure what you're getting into for sure. Yeah.
And that was like one of me and my partner's biggest fears when we started this, is that you don't know what you don't know. And so how you go, you decide, make this huge decision to actually start and be brave and do it. And then the whole time I feel like you're just scared, because you're like, okay, well, what's something I didn't know that's just going to pop up one day and just blindside me. But and that is something that I would have never known. So that's why I'm like, this episode's so perfect.
May I make a really quick request, Jeri, that we stick a pin in two things that Monique said about how we can better equip nurses in this space. And I have two ideas that I definitely want to make sure we cover toward the end. I think we have some questions around that, but I totally agree with her. We could do a much better job of equipping nurses, because we all have the potential to really flourish in this space.
Yeah, I'm just like, the more that I think about this, it's just I'm going to ask my School of Medicine colleagues. I'm like, hey, when you were in medical school,
Mm-hmm.
what did you ever have exposure to this? If so, how much? Because now I'm curious as well. If they were exposed to this themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sorry. I'm
No, I'm
just
curious too because they
Yeah.
do a better job of
yeah,
capitalizing off of their ideas. Most
Yeah.
of
yeah,
the colleagues that I've encountered in the space of entrepreneurship and innovation, especially in academic settings and around healthcare, have been physicians. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they do a
yeah.
much better job of capitalizing off of it.
I
Makes me
know.
wonder.
I know, me too. I'm like, I wonder why that is. I feel like that could be maybe a whole other episode probably of our speculation. Yeah, that's just like that's amazing, you guys. So pretty much in summary, before you start anything and before you're like you just start the process, you can just start slow, you can start researching. I know that I also too like dabbled into podcasts like this one, just to kind of start learning the lingo, start listening to ideas, seeing things that they're saying. I could listen to one episode and then be like, oh, that's something I hadn't thought of, and go from there. And then more than anything, learn your institution rules and regulations before you really get started. I think that was something really important too that stuck out to me is before you even, because I think there's an excitement when you start because you have a really good idea to get the process rolling. And so you're up on step like 4 or 5 before you even think about the rules and institutional rules and things. And then it's kind of like, oh man, I already used resources, or and then you're backtracking. So I think that was like one of the biggest things that stood out to me that you said, Monique, is this: before you start anything, just make sure you know that.
Totally.
Yeah.
It may save you a headache, or it may be an avenue that you want to explore to get that support up front, as Rasheeta said.
Right. So I feel like, so after we've done learning, or we feel like we're kind of ready to start telling people about our idea, I feel like the next section is pitch, which you hear so much about on like Shark Tank and things like that. We have our Shark Tank moment. And like we said, we touched on before, nursing school just like simply does not have the time or to include this. They could probably do a better job. But like how to pitch an idea, how to do any of this, we definitely have to learn it independently, but it's key in like a successful launching. If you can't talk about your business or your idea, then it's not going to really go anywhere. I know that when we were talking and brainstorming for this episode, Monique, you mentioned your pitch class, which I'm really wish I could join one and figure that out. Tell me more about that and kind of some things you learned from that experience.
Sure. So I had the privilege to I had the
Mm-hmm.
privilege to attend this Alan Alda course for professional development. And the whole purpose of this Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science, it's their mission to advance effective science communication through professional development programming. Like they want to make communicating ideas and innovation using terms that aren't like super high level. And so what I mean by that is that prior to attending this course, when I was engaging or interacting with people and telling them about my ideas, I'd be like, yes, and I controlled this by doing this, and I did this by doing that. Like I was not, it wasn't like my human, like layman's terms,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I was in my scientific mindset of my PhD program of
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, we had a randomized sample and we did this. And yes, it was, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And so like this course that I was able to get through, like they did these amazing activities where, what is that called again? And I feel like an idiot where I can't remember it.
Mm-hmm.
That comedy that you just
Like
like you
improv.
Improv. Thank you. I
Yes.
apologize. No, yeah. So like they gave you like these scenarios where you had to in front of people improv your solution, or you improv like this thing. And so I was so uncomfortable. You guys have no idea. I am like a closeted introvert. And so like you're telling me just off top of my head to like come up with this new thing. And I was
Mhm.
just like, I can't do that. But also to like put a story behind it, right? Because that is when you really get investors' attention. So
Mhm.
if I were to just go up to someone and say, yes, so I created this thing and I did it with, a random sample of 2,500 people. And of that random sample, 56% enjoyed it. That's telling me blah, blah, blah. They're going to tune it out. But if I go to someone and be like, so let me tell you a story. When my brother got sick last year, nobody was paying attention to what it is that, he was experiencing. And that's when I had this idea of like, hey, we need to invent something that, does X, Y, and Z. Like that's when you grab people's attention. You don't grab it just by, and I was guilty of this, like rattling off statistics and my basically a method section of a paper. Um, and so that really helped me learn that.
Yeah, it's easy to, we have a statistic mind sometimes, like us nurses, it's a science thing. So we want to like rattle that off, but totally. I feel like we're the heart and soul. And so when it's time to really pitch our idea, that's what people want to hear. I agree.
And I know Rasheeta recently did something with a pitch competition,
Yeah, I
right?
was like, you mentioned
I'm
pitch
gonna jump in
competitions.
there. Yeah, I would, we've always been taught that nursing is an art and a science. And so for a pitch, I think you have to pull on that art side of your professional development, right? And so, yes, I did recently, I've done several pitch competitions recently. I haven't struck a win yet, but that's okay. I'm gonna get there, right?
Yes.
But the more practice, the better. It's not, again, I'm like Monique. I'm you can't tell it, but I am a natural introvert. It's not something that is natural for me. And so I feel like I really have to kind of do it a lot to get it down and really feel comfortable doing it. So I wanted to say this as well before I'm going to give you some pitch pearls. Okay. That's what I'm going to title it.
I love that.
But what I'm going to say is this: you don't have to always know everything, right? And I thought about this as I was looking at the dynamics in these competitions. Some people came in teams. So if, I was like, you know what, that might be something that would work better for me. This is very uncomfortable for me. I know it's important, but maybe I should think about having a team because you're going to all bring in strengths and weaknesses. And so get people who might be able to complement you in ways that you don't feel the most comfortable. Like I can do all of the innovation parts. I love the, kind of background types of things that keep things rolling. But, being up front is not that's not my thing. I wouldn't prefer to do that part. So maybe a partner who's better at that would be helpful. So I just want to put that out there because once I saw that teams were an option, I saw how teams, their dynamic work, and they put the best person out front to do the pitch, right? Who was most comfortable. And so that's something to consider if that's not your thing. But here are a couple of things, and I would absolutely agree with Monique when you're talking about the first thing, which is your problem statement. A story is the way to go. What really inspired you to move this idea forward and think about what the solution would be, which is pearl 2. What's your solution? What are you offering? What's the innovation? Number 3 is having your, what they call a unique value proposition, or a UVP. And that's just like, what makes your idea any better than what's existing? What makes you unique in your idea? And then 4th, very simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, the call to action. What are you asking people? And I'm taking from some of my lessons, and it's not always money. It's not always capital. You might be seeking mentorship from people who have done this, and they can get you moving to the next phase of what you need to do. So what's your call to action? Is it capital? Is it mentorship? Is it something else that is of value to you as you're on this journey? And so some of the pitch competitions, and one in particular, Emory actually is growing in this space. They actually just hired someone to lead this area campus wide. And so there's a lot of momentum, a lot of opportunities that are coming for faculty to be a part of. So I did participate in a couple through Emory, but I also participated in one called Equalized Startups that was specifically for women in academia who was pursuing startups and innovation. Because as we know, and some of the statistics, nursing is primarily made up of women. So that goes to show you how many of us actually have businesses and are able to move it along the entrepreneurial continuum. So just to say that there are programs out there, I would recommend that you kind of do some exploration about how to get in these competitions. And some of them are niche. Like I said, Equalized startups were particularly for women academics to try and move their idea along. So I'll stop there.
No, that's an important thing you brought up. Sorry, Monique. I was just going to say though, I remember feeling pretty intimidated too. Like even though I would say it a bunch of times and get comfortable with that, I feel like that's key. And getting comfortable is just like practice on people you're comfortable with first. And then after that, maybe more. But I remember just feeling whenever it's somebody maybe higher up, or even just as a woman, feeling a little bit more intimidated sometimes. And that's just the truth. Even when I mentioned SCORE, even when we got partnered with somebody, it was a male who had, I think, been involved in like 50 different startups of some kind. And I just remember being like, can I even do this? So like, should I even? It's so intimidating. And so I'm like, yeah, I feel like just try to get out of your head, and just the more you practice, like it'll just become second nature.
Yeah, and so like that gets me. I'm sorry, I'm putting on my research hat now. Here
Yeah.
comes the PhD is coming out. No, it like it makes me wonder, or like, start to really like reflect on, what is the leadership development of a nurse? Like, as nurses, why do we feel, is it because we're, the nursing profession where we technically do the orders of a physician, and we that's, we have some autonomy, and I get that, but it's not like for the ultimate patient care. We always have to go back to the physician. Or, is it because everyone on this call right now are women? And so is it that factor as well? And so it really makes you wonder, as Rasheeta said, most of our workforce is women. Yay, more power to us.
Right.
But but then, like, like, shouldn't that focus in more on, developing us as leaders? Because I will tell you right now, when I was thrusted into the world of nursing administration at different hospital systems, and the higher up people were men or people of power, I was always intimidated to speak up. um and lately it's just been, I know what I had this aha moment where I know what I'm talking about. I know what is needed from the nursing perspective. I know. And like I don't know what it was, but all of a sudden I just had this boost of confidence where it's kind of like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. You'll need to listen to me. And that's what I feel like everyone needs, like in this innovation space. Like, your product, the benefits that it will bring, the potential capital gains that it may bring. And so you just have to like do that superwoman pose or superman pose and
Yeah.
like go and be like, I know what I'm talking about. You just need to listen.
Yeah.
And nobody's taught us that. It's just,
Yeah.
again, it was my aha moment.
I
Man,
feel like,
Monique, you go ahead, Jeri, because
oh,
you started me thinking.
yeah,
I
me
see
too.
Jeri, she's thinking, and
I know. I just was thinking like that's so true. Like I just was remember like even equating that to the bedside. I mean, I feel like when you're a brand new grad, you don't feel like you have that voice, and then eventually you learn. So and you get to the point where you're like, I am telling that doctor exactly this patient. So I'm like channel that inner advocate that you have at the bedside, and yeah, and do it for yourself. But it takes a while to develop, the confidence in that, just like it did, us as baby nurses and baby new grads. So
so
that's
true.
yeah.
So true. There's a book called Novice to Expert. I'm sure we all were privy to that in our nursing education. But Monique, to your point, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, because I think people listening to this will be able to identify with what you mentioned. I think we're conditioned to feel a little bit subordinate because we are following the orders of others. And until you kind of develop that level of expertise where you have the confidence to be able to exchange dialogue, being in a way, in my opinion, that you feel like you're being respected, right, in the space. Like I do know my thing. I'm here. And that has happened to me in my career. I'm like, listen, I get you're the doctor, but I'm here and I'm telling you what's happening. And honestly, I've been very fortunate to have colleagues that say, that respect that I have the expertise to give instruction and direction because of that. But what I'll say is that I think that intersection of being a woman and a nurse, yeah, I do think that intimidation factor looms very heavily. And it is something that takes time to grow in as far as confidence about what you know and how you can move your work forward very confidently. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And I just want to acknowledge, I love Jerry's, I loved your analogy of like, you advocated for your patient. Like when you're on a phone with the doctor, you're like, hey, listen, I'm with the patient the most. I'm here watching this happen. We need to do this. It's kind of like, okay, let's take that same mindset and apply it to this innovation. When you go out there and you pitch and you're saying, hey, we need to be doing this to make lives better. Like, let's do this. I love that analogy.
Like
Taking it.
we got it. We have it in us. We just got to remember that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that it makes a difference too. I mean, you're not going to be good at it overnight. So I think that I know something I struggled with is I'm like, want to be a perfectionist. And so I wanted it to be good at everything right away. And that's just not what's going to happen. And I know that, but it does affect, just getting more comfortable does affect like, your business or possible opportunities. I know that like a lot of people do their pitching and think stuff to get funding, which I feel like we should talk on just a little bit. That could be, as we've talked about before, a whole episode in itself as well. And it's so personalized. So I don't know if anybody has like any tidbits or tips on like getting funding. I know that me personally, we are privately funding. We haven't like asked for any. So I don't really have too much except that we have invested our own money in it. So
well actually, that's where a lot of people ask if you've had funding from people that how much have you put in? How have you asked people who you know and how confident are they in your product? So that speaks volumes. It that you have invested in yourself, and then also have people who care about you and who are really closely one of your first degree kind of relationships that they trust and believe in your product as well. Now I have a laundry list of opportunities for funding here. I don't want to. I'll let Monique say, and then if she doesn't have something,
please
you want me to
go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm anxiously got pen and paper ready.
I know.
Well, here we go. Let me go down. I'll be quick, but I will emphasize a few things. So do also want to highlight that there are like incubators, and those are more like people who are actively seeking out innovative ideas to fund. So there are incubators, and those are typically specific to a certain classification of a business, whether it's healthcare, etc. But I'm gonna go with, first of all, what comes up are federally funded opportunities. I won't harp on those because they are ever changing right now in this climate. But I will say that they as of today are still active, which are the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Grants that's offered through the National Institutes of Health. So I'm gonna just put that out there, and again, you can explore to see on a day-to-day basis if they're available. But here's some private opportunities. So Johnson & Johnson Nurses Innovative quick fire challenge. Johnson & Johnson actually has been very supportive of nursing. And so they typically do have a grant. So I would definitely suggest engaging them. Also, the American Nurses Foundation. Sometimes you have to be a member. I can't remember for specifically, but they do have a nursing innovation grant. But oftentimes you do have to be a member. Also, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. They usually have a grant called the Pioneering Ideas Grant. And RWJF has also been a really strong advocate for nursing. So I would explore that. There is something called the Arch Grant, and it's for startups. So it's ARCH grants. So definitely look into that. FedEx has a small business grant contest. So I will just say, I said FedEx in particular because that came up. But sometimes you can explore private industry. Sometimes they do have grants. I've seen where from FedEx to we were able to get a grant for a part from a different business. So just check out some companies. A lot of times they might have grants for nonprofit reasons. And then there is the Halcyon Incubator, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's HALCYON Incubator. That's an opportunity for funding as well. There is a business development resources for academic nursing. So there's something called the Nurse.org website that you can engage.
That's cool.
There's the Society of Nurse Scientists, Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Leaders. That's a website you can explore. There's the National Nurses in Business Association. So they have a lot of resources in that realm. I've already mentioned the Small Business Administration, which is SBA. Jeri brought up SCORE. That's also listed. There's actually Red Cap and Qualtrics. Those are those are like analytic tools that you can also use to help you kind of organize some things. Lastly, and I got a few more, something called Matter Health. It's an incubator for healthcare startups, including nurse-led businesses. So that's MATTER Health. There's this TechStars Healthcare Accelerator. So it also helps with startups. Springboard Enterprises Women's Health Innovation Program. That's also available. And then finally, Mass Challenge Health Tech. And that's MASSCHALLENGE, one word, Health Tech. And that's also for early stage healthcare businesses. So that's a laundry list of opportunities there, plenty to explore.
That list is like gold. I feel like I would have loved to have that before I started all of this.
Hey nurses, looking for exclusive discounts? Nurse.org has you covered with deals on everything. Save big on the essentials you need to excel in your career. Don't miss out. Visit nurse.org/discounts for the latest discounts made just for you.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of ideas. We're going to shift a little bit because now, like we've talked a little bit about pitch and funding. And so let's say you're doing all that. Now it's time to, and we talked a little bit about this in the learning process, but now I feel like it's time to talk about protecting your idea. We've learned a little bit about business concepts and we're confident in our idea. We're confident in our pitch. We've maybe raised a little bit of money. And now it's just kind of talking about, I know we touched a little bit, like I said, on the rules and regulations, but on the fact that even beyond that, we still need to protect ourselves a little bit more and sort of what that looks like. I know I don't want to share too much, but I know recently my partner and I with our baby nursing business had an incident where we almost had a client. He hired us and then something didn't work out. But after that, there were, emails and he was reaching out because he thought he had this great idea about how to make our business better. And so we were open to that, and we, had these discussions, and we just, were, naive in the sense that we thought that the intentions were wonderful. And we were excited about the possibility of a partnership. And it turns out that the partnership was not the goal at all. And he is starting his very own business similar to ours. And I don't know if the goal was to maybe get our blessing somehow, but that's, once we realized that's what's the direction that was actually happening, we were like, oh my gosh, we like did not see this coming. Definitely a learning moment, but you don't think it's going to happen, right from under you, basically. And if anything, it's a compliment that we have a great idea, but it's not going to matter that it was a great idea that we had if we didn't do our due diligence in protecting ourselves first. So that's why I feel like this section is so important. I know when we talked about beforehand, when we were brainstorming for this, Monique, you touched on the fact that nurses have their ideas copied because we're so nice, and things like that. So I don't know if you wanted to touch on like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we're so nice,
Right.
but I mean, we are, but I mean, it's more of like, so for instance, the champions of workarounds, I feel like the nurses, we use the nurses, we're the
Mm-hmm.
champions of that. And so because like typically when something needs to get done, it needs to get done then and there. And so if something isn't working, or if you don't have the necessary supplies or something of that nature, you MacGyver a fix sometimes. And so that is something that we have in our tool belt. And so I remember, I'm old, I remember like 20 plus years ago, I was on the floor, and at that time, you had to like cap off your IV lines for people. And then, God forbid, that one time I did not have a cap, and I'm like, crud, I can't disconnect this, and then it fell on the floor. And so like I'm yelling, I need a cap. And so somebody brought me the cap, and I was like, what'd be amazing if they had caps like hanging from an IV pole, and that was it. Like that was just my aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so then what I ended up doing is, of course, stuffing my pockets with cap from there on. But lo and behold, several years later, there it is, like impregnated caps hanging from a strip on an
Yep.
IV pole. And I was just like, I had that idea. I was like, but I never ran with it, just
Right.
because A, I didn't know that's something that we could do as nurses, but B, it's just kind of like, I was happy that this company realized, oh, this is what we needed as nurses. And so like it made me then like start to ponder at that point thereafter. I was like, yeah, so if a company were to come to me and be like, hey, tell me about your struggles, tell me about what's working well, what's not working well, to develop something, I would have gleefully said, yeah, this is horrible. We need this, we need that, blah, 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 blah. And if they were to invent something,
Mm-hmm.
come on. Unless I had that contract ironed out, I would not have gotten anything from that.
Yeah.
And so again, I, have the mindset of just wanting to make everyone's lives better, like patients, nurses, physicians, etc. And I guess that's where the comment of is that we're too nice comes from, because honestly, like you have to, like, your goal as a nurse is to make sure that your patient leaves better from the hospital than when they came in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if, I would have been like, yeah, if they want to do that, let's do that. And so I feel that I've seen everywhere across this country, um, companies kind of like tag into a nurse being like, hey, how do you do this? Let me see. And then them go off and invent something and have no credit to that nurse for identifying the problem and things like that. And there's nothing to protect us when it comes to that, right? Because they're the ones who are investing the time and energy. They're the ones who are developing the product. They're the ones who are doing that. So unless you have that contract saying, hey, if this is what you're doing and we need this joint partnership of like, if I'm giving you ideas, what do I get back? Not a way that I was programmed to ever think, but as I've grown and as my experiential learning
Right.
has grown, I'd be like, oh my gosh, now I'm starting to do that more often than not. These are the conversations that we need to be having. So like, sure, I'm willing to help you and I understand what's in it for you, but please explain to me what's in it for me. So that was my tidbit on that.
No,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Go ahead, Jerry. I don't know if you were gonna
No, I was just like
add to
saying,
that.
yeah, it resonates so much with me because I just am going through this like currently as we speak. And it's hard because I just, you think back and you realize like, wow, we had a couple different Zoom meetings where I just was free talking because I thought, I just was like saying all these things. And I'm like, man, I had to just go, complete halt to that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just gave him all of this great information. But
A non-disclosure agreement. Who would have thunk?
Non-disclosure. hmm Yeah,
yep.
and I've actually had individuals who join my lab sign NDAs for my work, and then I've also had to in kind do that for someone else. So that is not uncommon, and they're usually very straightforward. It's just literally like, this is our work and our idea, and we just ask that you don't share it. And most people are okay with that if they don't have ill intention. So it's pretty straightforward, and I would definitely recommend that. And I agree so much with both of you. And in particular, your example, Monique, is just, I have realized my worth. It's very rare. My LLC is Chandler Consulting and Media, and I don't give my intellectual property away for free. That's just the bottom line. I decide what I want to give away. It's not automatic anymore, like you said. It's usually we were just a wealth of information that people capitalize off, and we have to realize that if we don't capitalize off of it and we give it away, someone else will, and that's just the bottom line. That's the way the world works around business, and so you have to protect your ideas, and you also have to determine that what you have to offer is valuable. And you put a value on that. You put a value on your time. You put a value on the expertise that you've developed over time, and people want to have access to. And yeah, it's usually not free, which is why they come to you to ask. They're asking you for a reason. There's something behind that, and so I will say that most people, if you don't demand it, will take it for free. But if you put a price on it, we'll also pay you. So you can choose which route you want to go.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That was great. It's so true too. I was just thinking as you guys were both saying this, I'm like, there was, a time too. I was, like I mentioned, a travel nurse for 10 years. So I just know a lot of the insides and outsides and the game that's associated with that. And I've had so many people over the years reach out, and I've mentored a bunch of people. And then, I've given them like my entire notes of like, here's my housing tips, here's this, here's that. And then I turn around and people are selling that. Other people are selling that. And I'm like, oh, yes. And here I am. Yeah. A whole booklet, a whole e-course, a whole like whatever. And I'm here like, man, I've been doing this for free for years. So yeah, I think it's just a shift in mindset. We're so used to just being like, sure, like giving, and which is a wonderful thing, but also just shifting a little bit so that we protect ourselves is good too.
Yeah, it's really funny. I saw recently on social media, I don't know which platform, one of them, like these notes that a nursing student took. Apparently, she took really great nursing notes. And so I remember when I was in school, people were like, "Oh, can I have your notes?" I'm like, "Sure, sure, sure." And what she did is she's capitalized on it. Like she's selling her nursing school notes, like because they're very general. So she's out of nursing school, I think, and so she's now like selling these her notes that she took to help the growth and development of new nursing students, because it's easier to read apparently than books, or like it highlights like what you need to focus on. I know I was just like, I didn't think of that.
I know.
But
Have you
Yeah.
heard of these? So I know this one is in particular on TikTok, but they started this new trend where professors are getting on there they're doing education, like their lessons on TikTok. So,
Wow.
and students are really responding well to it.
Wow.
So,
Times are changing, aren't they?
yeah.
That's crazy. That's very cool. I'm sure. I mean, I learn a lot through TikTok. I'm sure there's like, that's another
Mhm.
avenue that you can truly like learn
Another
things through.
avenue. And then,
Yeah.
it's smart. If that's your niche where you're a very effective educator, you can monetize it and also do your job because apparently their students are using
Right.
it anyway, right?
Right. Um, so you touched on the NDA. I know that, just like to wrap that up, like, or at least the NDA part, it's definitely something, gosh, that I wish that I would have even thought of before any of these conversations. So definitely something to do there. I know that I know that something that stressed me out too when I was first starting is whether to do an LLC versus an S-Corp versus, there's a million different ways to structure your company and what you're doing. I don't know if you guys have tidbits on that. I know for me personally, it's such a case by case decision that it's sort of hard for us as far as podcast to give advice on that. I know an LLC made more sense for our business. But I know that we talked to a small business attorney as well as my tax person, just to kind of get their ideas and opinions on what we're doing and what they recommend. And then we went from
Yeah.
there.
Well, that's the official recommendation, right? People are going to say talk to an attorney, talk to your tax advisor. Those are going to be kind of your standards. But I will say that the SBA, or Small Business Administration, is really good about. They actually offer classes that break that down very vividly. So I would definitely suggest, if you want to have like an in-depth training on that, to certainly take one of their courses. That's where I first found out. But I did have like some pros and cons of that. Maybe that's helpful in some way. But I would definitely say go the route of making sure you double check for your particular business and what you're trying to accomplish with an attorney and a tax professional. But when you're considering a LLC versus a corporation, for an LLC, or a limited liability company, some of the pros are that they're simple to set up and manage. Personal assets are protected from business debts. There is some tax flexibility, and can be taxed as a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation. So it offers those protections, but also gives you some of the benefits of filing your taxes as an actual corporation. A con that was identified was harder to raise capital compared to a corporation. So I'm sure that has to do with rules and regulations around having an LLC. And again, that will have to be detailed for your particular niche. As far as corporation, there is a C-Corp and an S-Corp. So there are two designations. Again, that is pretty specific to what you're trying to accomplish. And I think you definitely need the counsel of an expert on that. But I will say some of the pros are, for a corporation, it is best for scaling and attracting investors. It offers strong legal protections as well. The S-Corp in particular allows pass-through taxation or avoiding double taxation. And again, that's where your tax expert is going to come in, because they can explain that better. Some of the cons for a corporation was that it is more paperwork and there are higher fees associated with it. And then it requires a formal structure, which means you have to like have a board of directors and annual meetings. Like, you have to report those things, you have to record those things, and you have to keep track of those administrative elements. So it does, like, you literally have to operate like your bigger corporations. If you are going in, even as a small business, you have to keep up with the same types of things that a larger corporation, and you may not have the fiscal resources to do that, because it is more expensive too. So you can, where to start with that, you can register for your business, file as an LLC or corporation with your state secretary of state, website. You have to get your EIN number, which is your employer identification number, from the IRS, so you can report what your income is and also file your taxes. And again, the recommendation is that you hire a lawyer as well, to make sure you're doing things appropriately.
So apparently I need to take some lessons from this SBA place. But like as you as I'm like, I mean, I thought that I'm thinking of going back to get my MBA, but maybe I can get everything I need from an SBA. Um,
And I listen, Monique, I've thought about that too. And I was like, I just don't want to go back to school again, like for all of that again.
Yeah.
So I thought about it.
I will be checking the set. Listen, thank you for educating me.
Oh,
I
you're
know.
welcome. And they also do have grants too through the SBA, and loans and low interest loans, for small businesses. But yeah, it really is a great resource. And so, I'm not an ambassador. I mean, but I did learn a lot from them. So I want to put it out there.
Yeah, I've definitely written that one down too. I'm like, let me check that out when we get off of this call. um, and then I know another thing too that a lot of people, when they've reached out to me about certain things, they've touched on trademarks. That's also something that's just like a whole other thing. That so depends, and that can be complicated a little bit too because it's so specific to what you did. I know that the thing that surprised us the most is that we ended up pursuing the trademark because we wanted to trademark the name of our business, but you can only trademark within this a certain like category of what your business is. So I think that's a big like misconception, is that you think that if you trademark this, then that it's good for everything and no one can ever use that name ever again. And you could do that. That'll cost you a lot of money because you could do it every lots and lots of money. So I think, yes, you pay separately for each category, plus I think the every other year renewal or something like that. So, it's just like it's it just, you have to really sit and decide if it's worth it for your
You got to go
business.
in with a plan. If you're
Hmm.
selling T-shirts, you need those categories, right? That has
Yeah.
your branding on it. Some people do, and I know this has happened a lot in the music industry. Some people will go in and buy your trademarks for different things, and then if you want it, or even your likeness, like
Yep.
artists who like they live off of they are their brand, right?
Hmm.
So, that people will go in and buy different categories of your trademark. And if you happen to say, oh, I got an idea, I want to sell T-shirts, you got to check to see whether or not that category is free for
Yep.
you to do it without infringing on trademark. So, yes, you could try to buy everything, but it would be very expensive. So you just need to have a plan as to what is smart for
Hmm.
you to trademark for your particular business. If it's a product, you obviously got to get those categories covered by the trademark.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot to look into, and just having like resources and people to talk to and bounce ideas off of is just so key, which actually is a good segue into my next thing, because I know it's something Monique touched on that is so important. I feel like we've done our pitch, we've done everything else, we are learning about kind of protecting ourselves, and now it's just like general tips on how to prosper from there on, because the rest of it, that's like the setup process, but you have the whole rest of your business life the rest of the time that you got to focus on. Everyone's just focused on like getting this done. Okay, now we're good. And it's like, well, now you got to grow, and now you have to maintain and build, and that's truly the hardest part. So I guess I just want to know your tips for, I know I'll start with Monique, because you brought up the importance of connection and networking, and I just can't stress how important that is. So I don't know if you want to touch on that.
Yeah. So, as I stated earlier, I am a closeted introvert, but like you have to be extroverted because this networking and connections is beyond important. And so you have to, like if you innovate, an idea or you have this innovation platform, social media is going to become your best friend because you want to get out there what it is that you have innovated and you want more users. But additionally, you gotta have to start going to like conferences as to for like what your product is, right? So people or trade shows, whatever it is that you've developed,
Hmm.
because that is going to be how you really start to a network with similar minds or network with other people in those common areas, but also your potential buyers or users or whatever it is that you made, so that they know about you. Because if you don't do that, no one's going to know that your innovation exists, right?
Mhm.
And so that's where it's really important that you do it for that reason. But another reason as well is that that's how you find these mentors. That is how you can, potentially get some more ideas on other aspects of it as well, to of like other groups that you may be able to pitch your innovation to, or things like that. Like maybe, you think that you have the right population of interest that you're targeting this for, but then after speaking to other people, you realize, ooh, that's a different population that I never thought about.
Mhm.
Maybe I should be targeting it this way, for, maybe I don't, I know a little bit about your innovation. Like maybe you're like, oh, maybe I'll just, go to pediatricians' offices and market this or something like that.
Yeah.
But then like talking to people and networking and, putting your idea out there, maybe you're like, oh my gosh, there's this whole Facebook groups of moms. That is
Yep.
now my target population. Like, how do I pivot? How do I change?
Mhm.
And that's the importance of this whole connecting and networking with other people, because that's how you grow and learn, more about your innovation and how to get it out to more people in a fashion where it's benefiting more people, with, I hate to say it, but potentially less work,
Mhm.
because you're like, I didn't even think about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Yes,
Right.
there you go. Efficiency. Love it.
Yeah, that's actually so funny that you touched on the Facebook groups and the mom groups, because I'm like, here I am, not a mom yet, but I am like in 1,000 mom groups, and I'm like, the stuff I'm just, it's cracking me up every day. I pull up my Facebook. I'm like, you would think I was a mom with all this mom stuff, but that's just solely to help the business. And then also, I wanted to point out too, an unexpected thing that helped me so much. This is just a little tidbit, but branched off of that, is just, as far as Facebook groups go, there's a lot of small business or women in business Facebook groups too. I'm a part of a larger one on Facebook, but there's also one that's more here local, here in Los Angeles where I am. And I just, they have like a database on there of like, here's this person's name, email, and their business. And I like sort of like a cold call. I just cold emailed one day. I had like a day where I had a little bit more time to do. I wanted to dedicate a certain amount of time to the business, and I set that time aside, and I ended up just emailing people and saying, hey, here's our business, where I'm newer to this side of the town. I just wanted to let people know. I got such positive feedback. I was surprised. I thought would hear nothing, but I feel like women more, are very helpful with each other and want to support each other, and I got a lot of response. And then now we're partnering with a surrogacy company out here who wanted to offer,
Awesome.
yeah, who wanted to offer, they're like, can we put your information in our booklets for new families? I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. So you just never know like who could be
You
a
never
resource.
know.
Yeah, and it's worth that time. I mean, that spent a couple hours doing that, and now we have several connections that are worth it. So yeah,
But
it's important.
yeah, and like we've already alluded to, that nurses wear many hats.
Hmm.
So let's just build off of that. So when you invent something, you're going to wear many hats again. So you're
Yep.
going to be the inventor, you're going to you're going to be the accountant, you're going to be the sales pitch person. Like,
Yeah.
that's just
Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
And like Rashida, I would love to hear your learned experience with that as well. Personally.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of word of mouth. My kids are in, so we have a number of businesses, and some of them are kid specific because my kids are there's kidpreneurs, right? So my daughter has a jewelry line,
Oh,
and my son has a YouTube channel. And
that's
so
amazing.
we really capitalize on their particular friend groups and the people that they're around, because a lot of times after that it's spread along the way. And honestly, I just got a inbox from their preschool that said, hey, you should check out this local vendor who likes to sell local products. So it's really about your network of individuals. And then I would say beyond that, like both of you mentioned, Facebook groups, LinkedIn is it has been a great resource for me. and also engaging in personal opportunities where I'm in conferences or really go to specific venues that have an emphasis on that business and that niche. So finding mentorship. And a lot of times your mentors will look out for you like, okay, I think this might be a great thing for you to consider. I wanted to kind of backtrack just a little bit, just to plug in another couple of resources because I know attorneys can be when you talk about attorneys, you're thinking that's so expensive. I don't know, but they do have like electronic services, legal Zoom, Market Lawyer. Like they have some things to maybe get you started along the way that maybe at a more of a lower price if you can't necessarily consult with an attorney right away. And you can look at their services and see if that's something that's helpful as well. So I wanted to plug that because I know sometimes it can be a bit pricey to engage lawyers. So
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because we used an electronic service for at least not for everything because but we used it for I think one of our contracts just to make sure because we just needed we wrote most of it. We just needed someone to be like, hey, is this kosher? Like, is this good? Do we lose legal jargon we needed to use? Things like that. So I forgot that we even did that. That's a great resource.
I was also going to say, because, starting your own business is not cheap, or, developing your innovation. I actually witnessed this at two different conferences where instead of buying like a little booth, what they ended up doing was like setting up shop in a local coffee shop and then just blasted social media where it was just like, if you want to learn more and like hashtag the conference, I was like, that is genius.
That's
Like,
smart.
I mean, I was like, that is a good way to save a penny. Or
Yeah.
like they would hold their invention in their pocket and then just strike up conversations with people. I'm like, I
that
dig
is
this.
super smart because those vendor options, like those vendor
They're not
tables,
cheap.
are expensive, especially at trade shows and things of that
Mhm.
sort. And it's not just the actual fee for getting your location or your spot; it's the setup. You got to have the tablecloths and the all the materials. So if you can, yeah,
Mhm.
that's smart. Yeah, you just taught me something. I might I
Yeah,
might
that's
start
smart.
doing.
That's
That's
very
smart.
smart. Also, another thing that I've noticed is good too is offering to be speakers at some of these events because then you can get in, and it's sort of like a free plug. Plus, you're doing something to help them out too. So I've that's been an option before for my partner and I both too. We've gotten kind of into a show or like a conference sort of, and by being a speaker, which is cool.
That's a
That is smart too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a smart move. And I've actually gotten requests to do interviews for like a publication based off of kind of their engagement with me at a conference too. So like we want to hear more, we want to know more.
Yep.
And so my innovation that I have through the university, I just presented on it, and I got a request from a magazine and was like, hey, we would love to blast it. When is it available? Let's talk about it. So that's another way to get it out, like you guys mentioned about the conferences. But then you could
Hmm.
get some other things that come along with it when people are hearing and want to know more about it, and it gets your it's more marketing opportunities for your product.
Right.
Look
And
at these
then
pearls of wisdom that we're just dropping.
I
I
know.
know,
I'm
right?
saying, I'm like, I would have loved this episode like 5 years ago. Another thing too, I know a lot of magazines, a lot of newspapers, websites, magazines are always looking for little shout outs, little just shout outs to businesses or things like that. So just looking at it, I know Voyage is in multiple cities and they shout out a lot of new entrepreneurs and things like that. So we've been in that and that's really helpful. We've been in like a Dallas family magazine. Just we've done a ton of just like random emails of just these magazines saying, hey, we're trying to get out there, would you guys feature us? And we were just shocked at how many people come back and be like, we would love to, we love your story, we love this company, like and just throwing it out there because what are they gonna say? No, okay, we'll just move on. Yeah, so just anything you can think of to just really like get out there is super helpful.
And that's a pearl too. Expect to hear no's. It's not
Yep.
going to be you're going to probably hear more no's than you do yeses, but that's okay. Just, you got to be resilient in this space, right? You got to know that you're not going to always have successes with trying to get it out there, or even buy-in from other people who can't really see your vision or the value of it. So you just have to keep moving forward.
A quick other pearl that I quickly want to throw in here is so you talked about your resilience and things like that, and then Jeri, with the situation that you were recently experiencing. It's kind of like, and I know this sounds mean and harsh, and I don't mean it to, but it's kind of like you really need to keep a written record of all of the agreements or all of the conversations that you're having. There's a reason why people are like, oh, this is too long in an email, let's just have a phone call, because there's no documented record of said phone call. And so typically what I tend, as nurses, you're told to defensively document because you have to, cover yourself when it comes, like if an unfortunate event or if something happened. But you have to do that with your business as well. You have to defensively document. And so what I found myself doing is that if they want to do a phone call, I'm like, great, sure, let's have a phone call. And then I would take notes during that phone call and send them the email saying, this is what we discussed, and this is, what, we agreed upon, etc. And then I'm like, if there's any changes, please, from like making sure that there was no misinterpretation of what was said. And so that way we can, you have proof that you sent this to them. They didn't respond back. Okay, we assume that this is good. And, you have that record. So that would be my other piece of advice or wisdom that I wanted to share with people. I think I call it like, keep your receipts, basically.
That's amazing. I just wrote that down.
Yeah, it's so true, because with this, most recent experience that I told you guys about, the first 2 meetings were Zoom, and I had nothing to go back and be like, this is not what we thought this was going, here's why. We had nothing. And so after that, I think the 3rd meeting, I remember talking to my partner and being like, okay, now it's time for us to construct an email to him and put it on like paper, essentially, of what we thought was happening, because of this, we have no proof up until now. And to just like in writing say, we're not okay with you essentially taking our idea, just FYI, in case, you just don't think about that until later. But it's I feel like, yes, I could scream it from the rooftops now, going through what we're going through. Like, please keep your receipts for sure. Yeah. I know a last little thing I just wanted to throw in there too. It's so random, but I just make sure your website is pretty. I feel like I've had a lot of people. That's another thing I wanted to throw in there that I just thought of now. I've had a lot of people who have come back, or I see like new businesses, and their website sometimes struggles. So if you have a website, invest the time to make it pretty. Like, people will turn away if they get to your site, making sure that the mobile view is also pretty, because I know you can spend a lot of time. We use Wix, Wix.com. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yes, plug for them. But I just remember there's like, you have to edit both the internet or the computer based side as well as the mobile side to make sure it looks, because it doesn't always match up. And so I know that that's really important, in making sure that that's always current,
your website,
up to date.
And your online presence gives you legitimacy.
Yes.
I mean, if you're not visible online, they're like, this is non-existent. It's a scam. So you do have to have that. Yes. I don't care. Anybody who wants to have a business has to be online, period.
Yeah. And I remember sending, like, once I made the website, sending it to everyone I knew, just to get opinions on like, how does it look? How does the flow? I just know if I go to like a website that isn't even like pretty or user friendly, or like my eyes can't make sense of it, I'm like, and I X out of it. So I'm like, I don't want that to be happening to us. So just thinking about things like that.
If it's too complicated, I will X out of it.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty much.
And update it so that it's relevant along the way. And it's actually making me think about how I need to update mine, because it's probably been a little while. But
Yeah.
you just need to make sure it remains relevant. I would say probably at least every year you should look at your website, make sure it's a true
Yes.
reflection of what you have going on at the moment, because hopefully your business is growing and things are changing and evolving. So that needs to be reflected in your online presence as well.
Definitely. For sure. So this episode has been so amazing. I wanted to just some wrap up questions. I want to start. I know we touched a little bit on it earlier. Do you think which I know the answer, but do you think entrepreneurship should be added to nursing curriculum? And do you think it ever will?
I'm going to give the floor to Rasheeta because she said, I'm going to put a pin in two things.
Monique,
and I've been
I've been
anxiously
waiting on this question. So thank you. Well, really quickly, I am going to say, I don't think nursing schools have a choice, especially in the current climate, because I think we have been so dependent on certain, and I'll just say it, federal funding. And we now have to be think about how do we be a little bit more self-sufficient, even and having our portfolio of offerings be more diversified. I will say at Emory, I'm very, I want to kind of shout out a lot of the innovations from the leadership. We do have a data science lab. I think Monique mentioned she's a part of that. I would say that I'm probably a part of it not officially, but in a way I engage with them a lot. But that's not really common in schools of nursing. Like, I don't know of any other schools of nursing. There may be some, but Emory is one of the first ones that I know of that actually has a very robust data science department, where you can do big data, you can do innovative technology development, etc. I think that entrepreneurship should also be start to be a consideration for nursing schools. And I have actually developed I have outlined what I think it should look like. Shameless plug for myself, because I think I just feel very passionately that this is something we should do. And one of the things I would throw out there, and I'm giving this away a little bit, but I think that the School of Nursing should hire at least one person. They should have a line item for one person who is basically a person who will walk their nursing faculty through from start to finish. And the goal would be actually licensing and commercializing that product. And they negotiate with that nursing faculty, just like we said throughout the episode. What of that will that nursing faculty get as far as money, and what will the school get? And that money generated could help both the nursing faculty as well as the School of Nursing, and be a point of revenue for both. So just like we do with clinical practice, I think that entrepreneurship and innovation, and then also as far as building it into the curriculum, I absolutely think that should start to be really a necessity. Like, we figure out how to actually build it in. It could be start out as an elective, and we could figure it out in that way. But I honestly think this generation of student, because there's so many ways to start to monetize your IP through social media and other platforms, that they're really interested in that. They want to know how to really be self employed. Sometimes they don't always want to be in clinical settings, and that's just the reality we live in. And I think we have to be timely in the way that we structure academic settings for them and give them that opportunity. We see that it's a gap. We said that all day today. So why not? Why don't we make the change and implement some of the changes that need to happen in the curriculum? So
it also got me thinking, even not necessarily in the academic setting, because I have my role on the healthcare side. Why can't we do a professional development course, for people to sign up for, pay $25 to cover the time or something like that, and have them, learn the ins and outs of, what innovation is, how to do it, etc. So
there you go. Yeah. Truly, there's like that's not a lot very common for nurses. Like I don't really see a lot of that. So
Hey, Rasheeta, let's develop an LLC. Let's do this. Like, I can use my connections in the help. Yeah, let's do this.
I know. That's how you know it's a good podcast. We've talked ourselves into more ideas. That's so funny.
Uh, but yeah, no, I also agree that it really does need to be in the curriculum for nurses so they understand and they can protect themselves and their ideas at that point of time. But again, also since my population of interest are currently working nurses, let's get them up to date with it too. So that's why I was like, health systems should be,
Yeah.
should be offering this as well.
Yep. I love that. And then this might be a tricky one because this podcast is jam packed full of all kinds of information. But if you're just someone listening to it and you're feeling overwhelmed because you want to start something and you just listen to all of this and there's so much information, what if you can only take one thing away from today's podcast, what would it be?
No, I have to think about this. There was so much.
There was so much.
Like my
Yeah.
biggest takeaway really quick is that I need to develop like my own knowledge and education about small businesses and before I really dive into it. And yes, I'm not going to know everything. But that is to me like my starting point. So if I do have this idea or potential LLC, it's important that I start to really then, okay, I have this idea. So let me take my own time to then do this deep dive, just so I can make sure that I understand everything that I need to, and then connect with people like Rasheeta and yourself, Jeri, to be like, hey, can you be my mentor? And so that I feel like education is, oh my God, it's like from the 80s, education is power, something like that, or knowledge is power.
It
But I
is.
mean, that is honestly like my tidbit is that taking away that knowledge is power, and that in order for me to have that power, I need to have developed my knowledge.
Mhm.
Um, Thank you, Monique. That helped to kind of charge my thought process around this. And I want to just say that I want to encourage you to say, I want to encourage each of you out there listening that if you have something you want to pursue, you can do it. You can do it because we do it for everyone else, right? I wanted, there was something that I really feel I don't want to leave here without telling you, and that's about time management. Because we are so busy, not only with our professional life, but we all have personal lives, right? We're managing schedules for our kids, all of their activities. So how do you do all of this and work and manage your day to day, right? So I would just say that you do have to set a clear schedule. You have to block your time and you have to build in what you want to accomplish with your business in that schedule. So maybe it's taking early mornings, some weekends, some late nights, because we said if you're not going to do it with your employer, it's likely that you are going to have to take some of your personal time to do your business, right?
Yep.
I would encourage you to automate and outsource as much as you can. So if you have like things like Candly, QuickBooks, Canva for marketing, QuickBooks for finances, Candly for scheduling, like utilize those tools. I use them to help me out because I don't always have the staff to be able to schedule things, right? And I definitely don't always have the time to do it. You need to prioritize your tasks, leverage your current network, and you need to take care of yourself. Avoid burnout because you do need downtime. Like it's great to have all of these wonderful ideas, and but because we are juggling so much, you have to build in your own time. So that's a vacation, that's a massage. You have to be your best you in order to do any of this. So
Very true. I think a lot of that goes into, yeah, the time management, and also just once you've done your research, like seeing if it's something that you truly want, because it is a lot of time and it is a lot of energy, and you also have a full-time job probably amongst other things. And so just like really deciding if it's something that you're super passionate about doing, and once you've made that decision, then really do it. And really, you can, just like you said, you absolutely can do it. Don't let fear hold you back. If anything is going to hold you back, just maybe life commitment, but don't let fear hold you back, because that's something you'll be successful if you're passionate enough about it.
And then I would like to quickly add to that too, is that if you have a partner in life, make sure that they also are fully supporting whatever it is that you're trying to do, because that can, cause influence negatively if they're not supporting it or something of that nature. And so I I just want to acknowledge that, because when I started my PhD program several years ago, I was told that if you don't have a supportive partner, you're probably going to end up getting a divorce.
Oh my gosh.
That's what we were told the first day.
You're like,
And
okay,
so-
welcome to class.
I know. And I was just like, I never thought of that, right? Because it's going to be long hours, it's going to be a lot of time. And then, like, if you're thinking this truly is a priority for me in life now, like, you may miss soccer games or things like that. So I guess it is kind of trying to understand like the value of, pursuing this to your own, what it is that you want out of life.
Right. Right. This was amazing, you guys. I feel like I, again, would have loved to have this. And I have a couple people I've thought off the top of my head who have reached out to me about being interested in pursuing a business or something, that I feel like I can't wait to send this to them. It's a great, like, getting started and getting your wheels turning. All of these things could be individually episodes on their own, but I think you guys did so wonderful of summarizing it and kind of getting down to what's important right when you're starting. And it's been such a pleasure. So any last thoughts, or where can they find you guys if they have questions, or do you want them to go through Nurse.org?
Yeah, you can find me on pretty much any media platform, but my website is www.chandlerconsult.com. So yeah, I think maybe, I don't know if we have like a description that we could provide those, but I have all my social media handles it's Rasheeta Chandler, so you can find me online.
Not as cool as Rasheeta.
Yes, she is.
I was like, you can find me on LinkedIn, but I think that's
Perfect.
it. But yeah, I'm not as cool. I don't have handles.
LinkedIn is perfect.
LinkedIn, yeah, it is.
Right. And my name is Jeri Ford, and you can actually find me on the Nurse.org website if you have questions, or if you want questions for them too, I can reach out to them as well. And also my Instagram handle is JeriLynn_89. You can reach out to me there too. And we hope everyone had a wonderful listen to this episode, and make sure to like and review and subscribe to the Nurse Converse podcast, and let us know what you thought.
Thanks for joining Nurse Converse, brought to you by Nurse.org. Help us grow by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Nurse.org supports nurses with career and education tips, life advice, and breaking news. Thank you for all you do and for being you.